Welcome to the Combative Nerds Podcast. Join us while we break balls and try to outwit each other at every turn while debating all things nerdom and trying to make sense of this world. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Raiderlance, and I am here alone, and I am wearing my beanie because I did not have a chance to shave my head today. There is so much that we got to get into with the Andrew Tate case. But first, let's do some housekeeping. Please like, share, subscribe. Took a lot of schooling, a lot of research, a lot of writing and editing to get this show done. I'd really appreciate your help if you could, like I said, like, subscribe, share. Now, you might be wondering, why can you only hear me? Why is this an audiogram? Why is this not a video? Well, that's part of the announcement. It's the reason why Mag is not here with me, my normal partner in crime in this conversation, is because he's going to focus on working on a different show that we're developing. I'm going to pump out maybe part 1, part 2 of an update for Andrew Tate. And then we're going to do a hard shift to video. You guys have spoken. It's clear. We got to get video out. So we might go on a little hiatus, but I needed to get an update. I'm already too far behind in this case. Now, the way this format's going to work for the part 1, part 2 update, I'm going to give you a timeline of everything in the past, and we're going to bring you all the way up to date, but just the timeline of the legal proceedings. Then I'm going to go back and discuss 12, maybe 13, 14 different items that I want to talk about during that timeline that I have not previously talked about or that I never got around to talking about it. And I'll try to get as far along as we can. Maybe we'll hit, 5, 6, 7. We'll see how it goes. I will be talking a little bit fast because there's just so much to cover in this case. Now, as for who am I? If you're a first-time listener, why should you listen? I am an attorney. I grew up in the hood, specifically Boyle Heights, California, which is part of Los Angeles, right next to downtown. So I didn't plan on being an attorney. It just kind of happened with hard work and circumstance. So when I have this discussion, I am bringing you an expert opinion as an attorney. However, I want you to think of me more as, if you had some questions about an Andrew Tate case and you had a buddy who's an attorney, that's the type of conversation you'd have. I know there's some other attorneys, specifically Bruce Rivers on this one. He gives you very expert criminal opinion, behind his big desk. It's not the way I do things. I'm not that guy. So I do want to break down the specific items that I see that I think are relevant, important. Maybe you missed it. Maybe you think I got it wrong. If so, comment. Let me know. Let's have this open discussion. It's gone great in our previous episodes. Okay, let's get into the timeline. Bring everybody up to date. All right. Back in April 2022, Romanian authorities launched an investigation into the Tates and his brother, Tristan, and law enforcement raided the Tates' Romanian home where he was allegedly holding 2 women captive. And that was a tip that came from the U.S. Embassy because an American citizen called the embassy and said that there were Americans being held against their will. Go check our previous episodes. We go into detail about that. Okay. Then on December 29th, 2022, Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, and 2 Romanian women, Georgiana Naghel, I apologize for getting that wrong, and Luana Radu. Those 2 women are commonly referred to as Andrew Tate's lieutenants, his angels, potentially his bottom bitches, however you want to call it. So those 4 people were detained by Romanian authorities for a 24-hour period on human trafficking charges with 6 victims identified. 1 suspect was also charged with rape. December 30th, 2022, a Romanian judge approved the prosecutor's request to extend the detention of 30 days. Tate and the other suspects appealed that ruling. All right, this is where it gets a little tricky. So first got detained. Judge granted a 30-day preventative detention. Now, on January 4th, the Romanian authorities began seizing Andrew Tate and his brother's property, and we'll go more into that later. January 10th, a Bucharest court of appeal denied the Tate's brothers and the 2 Romanian women's appeal against a 30-day detention. So that was their first appeal loss. All right. January 20th, the Tate brothers' detention was extended for another 30 days until February 27th, allowing the prosecutors to continue their investigation of the human trafficking and organized crime allegations. So the prosecutor said, hey, we don't got our case done. We need to do some more investigation. Can we get another 30-day preventative detention? So that was preventative detention extension number 1, right? Now, because that was granted, Andrew Tate is looking at 60 days behind bars. And we got some information later we'll discuss what the judge took into account when making their decision to extend that detention. All right, now sometime in late January 2023, the Tate brothers hired Tina the boss Glandian, a prominent American criminal defense attorney. And we will talk more about her later. All right. I want to say the morning of February 1st, 2023, Tina Glandian held a press conference to introduce herself, that she was representing the Tate brothers and working in conjunction or alongside with their current Romanian legal defense team. Then later on in the afternoon, maybe the evening, she went on a Piers Morgan show to give an interview. Also on February 1st, it's a pivotal day, the Tate brothers and the two Romanian women appealed their first 30-day detention extension, right? The four argued that the extended detention was not necessary, but the court rejected their appeal and upheld the detention until February 27th. So that was the first 30-day preventive detention extension appeal that got denied, right? Long way to say it, but technically it was their second appeal to deny the preventive detention, but this was the first extension. You guys get it. This is going to get tricky because this is ongoing. All right, February 21st, the Bucharest tribunal granted the prosecutor's plea to keep the Tate brothers in custody for an additional 30 days. That means preventative detention extension number 2 was granted. So now the Tates are looking at being behind bars 90 days. But here's a curveball. This time, Georgiana and Luana, which were the angels, were granted bail and would be placed under house arrest. Why? Now it's getting interesting, and we will talk about that probably in part 2. So that is the timeline currently while I'm making this video. Now, let's go back throughout that timeline about the 12 or 13 different things. Well, for right now, it's 12. It might get expanded once I get part 2 out of this. The last update we gave here was on January 27, 2023. And I'm not going to lie, I missed some things in the news. I didn't either find it, or it wasn't publicized, or Google wasn't showing it in my searches. So I'm going to talk about some stuff that happened before January 27th. All right, let's go through the 12 different things that I plan on talking about in the next 2 episodes. One, this is old news from January 4th. There was an article in the International Business Times, and that is where there is a female named Lisa, a Ukrainian war refugee, and she speaks about having known Tristan Tate for about 3 years, and she lived on or in one of the properties, and she was present during the December 29th raid. Some more old news. January 10th, there was a New York Post article, and in that article, it discusses the DIICOT agency request for the 30-day extension to extend the detention for the 4 in custody. And most importantly, there is a document that was released where the judge talks about the reasoning or the factors that they used to make that decision to grant the extension. All right, January 12th, we got a Daily Mail article. In that, there are 2 females, Beatrice and Jasmina. They were interviewed. They claim to be 2 out of the 6 victims that the prosecutor are using to make these allegations. Why this is important is Beatrice and Jasmina, we talked about her previously, Jasmina, they are ardent defenders of Andrew and Tristan Tate. So let's get into that interview a little bit later. January 18th, Lisa, the Ukrainian refugee, comes back. Now she's on social media and she drops 2 videos in support of the Tates. I think the first one is pretty benign. The second one, kind of interesting, and we'll talk about that. Late January 2023, of course, we mentioned Tina Glandian is hired, and we'll discuss in detail who she is and what her credentials are. February 1st, Tina Glandian goes on the road. She does a press conference. Then she does the Piers Morgan show. Then sometime during that day, she was able to fit in the Tates and the Angels appeared in the Bucharest court, where they appealed the judge's decision to extend their arrest, and second time were turned down. February 2nd, Daily Mail article came out discussing the Bucharest Court of Appeals ruling denying the Tates' February 1st appeal. But here's the thing that we should really talk about. When the judges discussed why they denied the appeal, there's a psychologist report that was utilized. And in that psychologist report, they discussed 2 Tate females, and it didn't sound good. There's a lot of language that would go against the Tates. All right, February 17th, we got some leaked WhatsApp chats. Now, I only know this because of the attorney, Bruce Rivers, criminal defense attorney at large, massive YouTube following. I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about Bruce Rivers. I got some major compliments and I got some criticism for the man. So I'm going to get myself in trouble probably in part 2. But I will say, Bruce Rivers, thank you so much. I'm dovetailing off you. So at the end of the day, I got to give credit where credit's due. You seem like an amazing attorney, but I still got to talk some shit. All right. February 19th. 2023, BBC article discussed that Andrew Tate's legal team sent a cease and desist letter to an accuser back in December. In that communication, he threatened legal action for defamation and slander. And he said, if you don't stop this and I sue you, I'm going to seek damages of 249 million British pounds. Damn, that's a lot of money. And then finally, on February 21st, 2023, the Bucharest tribunal granted the prosecutor's plea to extend the Tate brothers' detention in custody for another 30 days. That would be a total of 90 days that they may be in jail. However, Georgiana and Luana got bail and house arrest. Now, Bruce Rivers, I think, just did a video today talking about whether or not they stitched. We kind of gave our opinion of that. I'm going to give my opinion again. That's going to all be part 2. All right, so now we got the roadmap. Here is my suggestion to you. This is long laid out. I'm an attorney. We do these type of outlines. We do these type of breakdowns all the time. Check the description in YouTube. I will post all my links, all my citations of all the articles and the videos that I found. It'll lay things out a little bit more in outline. Also, I'm going to give chapters to the video. So you can go chapter by chapter. If you care about something, you don't care about another thing, you can jump ahead, listen to it a couple times, whatever you need. I'm hoping around Thursday, Friday, I'll drop part 1. I'll work over the weekend to get out part 2, and that way we'll be caught up by the beginning of next week. All right, well, let's go through this stuff in bigger detail. I'm also working with a new setup because we're trying to move to video. You might hear mouse clicks. I might be a little bit off because I'm having to read. I got to get better with eye contact to the camera for my viewers, so I apologize. I'm used to just looking at screens. All right, let's go back in time to January 4th, 2023, where the article from the International Business Times interviewed the Ukrainian refugee, Lisa. What was her importance? Again, she was present and living on the Tates property in Romania during the raid that occurred on December 29, 2022. Lisa at that time said she had been living there for about a month. So it seems like she gave the interview to the Times of London, and then now the International Business Times is reporting on this. But in that interview, she just straight out, she defended Andrew and Tristan Tate. She said everything, and I quote, everything the police said is not true. What the police are saying, I know it is untrue. They don't have proof. I know them, the Tates. They would never do this. The girls who lived here do not have to do anything. They are good girls. So if she had been living there for a month, she had been around him quite a bit, and we'll go into the other videos specifically with her. She knew him for longer than that, but she kind of knew the ins and outs. She would have known if people were being held against their will. So is this evidence? Well, it's kind of opinion-based, and it's hearsay, and it's a statement, but she was close with them. I'm pretty sure she was working for them. Pretty sure she had dated them at some point in time. It just goes to show you there is another woman that are willing to defend the Tates. Now let's go to item number 2. Again, old news from January 10th, 2023. It is a New York Post article. Now, here's some news we already covered. Back in December 2029, the 4 people were initially detained in Bucharest on charges of participating in organized crime, human trafficking, and rape. The Romanian Decret for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorism, known as DIICOT. So this DIICOT agency requested a 30-day extension to their detention. We knew this. We reported on it. Now, here's some new information we hadn't reported on. The DIICOT said after the late December raids that it had identified 6 victims in the case who were subjected to, and I quote, acts of physical violence and mental coercion, end quote, and were sexually exploited by the group members, meaning the Tate brothers and their angels. The DIICOT then argued that the victims were lured by pretenses of love and later intimidation, surveilled, and subject to other control tactics to force the women to perform pornographic acts with the intended purpose to reap substantial financial gains. Now, we keep on saying there's allegations. There are currently no charges against the Tates. And that is technically true. Point blank, we're using the terminology properly. When you bring charges, there are certain laws and criteria that need to be met. And we will hopefully discuss that later. Maybe I can get one of my criminal prosecutors or defense friends to come along and help walk me through this. But here's what I will say. When the DIICOT are laying out their arguments, they're making what we call assertions. And those assertions should be backed by evidence, facts. So when the DIICOT uses language as the girls were subjected to acts of violence and mental coercion, I'm assuming that the DIICOT feels like they have the evidence to prove those things. Then when the DIICOT says that these victims were lured by pretenses of love and later intimidated, surveilled, and subject to control tactics and perform pornographic acts, I don't think that's that issue. I think we could stipulate to that, the Tates ran a webcam business, right? And for the purposes to reap substantial financial gains. Yeah. So that's not really an issue, but the pretenses of love, later intimidation, surveilled, control tactics, you can kind of look at that as that's where the DIICOT's game plan, roadmap, that's what they're going to be arguing to get the conviction here. So I think there's a very important language that people should be focusing on, because that's telling you the lay of the land. That's going to be the battlefield, is disputing those items at hand. Okay, well, now we know during that detention hearing, or the appeal of it, I should say, the Tates and the two Romanian women responded by arguing the seizure of the belongings and prolongation of their arrest warrants were unnecessary. Now, at that time, what property was seized? Well, there was 15 luxury cars, 7 of them specifically belonging to the Tate brothers, and then 10 properties of land owned by companies registered to the Tates. So could there be more since then? Probably. I haven't seen an updated accounting of that. Okay, then January 20th, we already talked about this. Bucharest Court of Appeal order all 4 be held in preventive detention for the full 30 days. So they lost the appeal, and that they were supposed to stay until February 27th. Now, here's the important part. A document came out explaining the judge's motivation for granting that extension, which is denying the appeal. The judge said, and I quote, "The possibility of them evading investigation cannot be ignored," end quote. And that they could, and I quote, "leave Romania and settle in countries that do not allow extradition," end quote. That is very important. Now, here's the question. Does the judge just not like the Tates and assumes this because of stuff they've seen on the media? Is there evidence that they may be a flight risk? Is the judge bought and paid for? And they're going to rule that way anyways, even though the Tates might not be a flight risk, but the judge is getting marching orders. We don't know, but the reason why this is important is this becomes a large contention that Miss Glandian discusses at length. And she doesn't really focus on that language. It's really important. I am hoping, I am going to be naive and assume the best of this judge, that there was some evidence presented, or maybe they're using their past experience during bail hearings or preventative detentions, that the Tates just fall into the people who could be a flight risk. All right, let's go to item number 3. January 12th, Daily Mail article. 2 women who claim to be named on the prosecutor's list as Andrew Tate's victims said that they were never abused. This was Beatrice and Jasmina. They did an interview with Romania's Athenian Stars. Now, Beatrice basically gave most of the interview, and I'll read some of it just to see how strong her language is. And I quote, "I don't understand how we ended up being called victims when we didn't make any statements as if I was a victim. I gave a favorable statement for them. With what right does the Romanian prosecutor's office accuse me of being a victim? Did I write that in a statement? I didn't write that anywhere. It is an abuse of the prosecutor's office against me." Again, these are different quotes being strung along together. Then she says, and I quote, "The girls were never deprived of their freedom. They always had access to telephone. The doors were always open. This case is basically built on lies. How can I trust the Romanian authorities?" So she is an ardent defender of the Tates. She just blasts the Romanian authorities about this and using her as a victim. How can the authorities use her as a victim when she claims that she is not? Well, the human trafficking case has some weird nuts and bolts that I think everybody is getting wrong. We found the Romanian law that discusses human trafficking, and this ongoing debate of whether they consented, whether you cannot consent, it's going to come down to the language, and people need to look. There is a possibility, and we kind of have it hinted through the psychology report saying that 2 women were essentially brainwashed, that the prosecutors might be able to go over these girls' heads if gone through certain steps to show that either consent was not needed or that the women were not of the right mind when coming to the defense of the Tate. So this is going to get tricky. At the end of the interview, both girls were specifically asked, "Hey, you have some tattoos that has the term Tate girl, or I think property of Tate. And both of them said it was done out of respect, that they don't belong to him, that they were not forced, and it is not branded. The girls just had a lot of tattoos anyways, and they show some of them off. There is a video, a little short excerpt. I'll include it in the links below if you want to see these ladies and some of the translation. All right, item number 4. Around January 18, 2023, again, Lisa, the Ukrainian refugee, started releasing 2 short social media videos. And in the first video, it was kind of benign. She said she knew the Tates for 3 years. They're smart. They're kind. She gave examples of how altruistic they were and how generous they were. She said she financially helped them. That was fine. It is the second video that kind of gave me pause. And I'm going to play it for you so you can hear it and see if I'm imagining it, see if I'm taking it wrong. But let's go ahead and through the magic of the computer, I am going to share it and you guys can hear it. All right, here we go.
Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to share my thoughts about Tate brothers with you. I know them well and for a long time, and they helped me and many Ukrainian refugees. They are really nice guys, and it's really sad to see them still in this prison after what happened. I'm going to share with you what happened with me. At 6 a.m., 10 people raided my house. They took all my devices and phone. I think that you can imagine how much I was scared. They are purposefully trying to pressure me to make them guilty. I can say that DIICOT is trying to manipulate the girls, saying only what is beneficial to them. After what happened, I came to conclusion that due to lack of evidence, they are trying to extract any information against them, using quite serious methods of manipulation. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
All right, so interesting. Listen, huh? Okay, so here are my questions. She said that her house was raided. Now, is she talking about the December 29th raid or some subsequent raid on her own separate property that she owned and is now living at? Is it a little bit confusing? I went through and looked, and that article that came out previously about her that I'd missed, it seems like she's talking about the December 29th raid. So I don't know why she calls it her property. Maybe that's a translation thing, but pretty sure it's Andrew Tate's property. Now, here is where I take major issue. She can have an opinion, but when she claims that law enforcement is purposely trying to pressure her to make the Tates look guilty and that DIICOT is trying to manipulate the girls, you gotta back that up with some proof. Did the prosecutors specifically say something to you? Were they leveraging something against you? Did they isolate you? Did they threaten you? Like, what? You can't just make that statement and assume that people are going to believe you. You got to back that up with some type of proof. And then she doubles down on this and says she believes that due to the lack of evidence in this case, the DIICOT is trying to extract any information against the Tates via serious methods of manipulation. Look, she can have an opinion, but opinions are like assholes and everybody has one. That has absolutely no bearing. Maybe Lisa is a certified paralegal or working as a webcam operator to pay her way through law school and become a judge. But I mean, come on here. You can't talk about lack of evidence, essentially corruption at the law enforcement agency, and not give us one example. Did you tell me these guys gave you dirty looks when they were questioning you? That'd at least be something. But just to make these bold statements and no example, I'm going to be honest with you. Now, maybe I'm not familiar with Ukrainian girls or that part of the world's expressions and mannerisms. It did feel like a sales job, that second video. I mean, she's a lovely girl. She can talk well, but I mean, your words are just super hollow. And I wish you would have gave us just one example of serious methods of manipulation, pressure, but you didn't. So again, another female who I believe worked for Andrew Tate coming to the defense. I respect that, but your opinions, ma'am, have no bearing on this case. All right. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Tina Glandian, the new U.S. attorney that's been hired by the Tates. And then I think we're going to wrap it up and we'll do part 2 because I don't want to make this too long. So I'm going to riff a little bit about this, but here we go. Miss Tina Glandian was an American attorney. She is a partner at a very high-powered law firm called Garagos and Garagos, and she is the head of their New York office. She has multiple law licenses: California, New York, Nevada, Florida. It's very impressive, especially she has the two hardest states, California and New York. She received her law degree from Loyola Marymount Law School. Now, here's where I'm going to make an aside. This shit's going to go off the rails because I personally have visited Loyola Marymount. I did not attend there. I personally had a very dear, dear friend of mine attend. She was just a sweetheart. I mean, this is going to sound a little corny. She walked on water to me. Her and her boyfriend, fiance, took me under their wing. I don't think I would have gone to law school if it wasn't for them. They showed me around college. I wasn't born of that world. They really took a kindness to me. And she really helped me out. I have a very soft spot in my heart for her. She attended Loyola Marymount. It was not a good experience. So let me go into Loyola Marymount. Let me explain it to them. Loyola Marymount is a tier 2 school. Now, U.S. News, I think, and Report or something like that, ranks schools. Specifically for law schools, the way it's ranked is there's 4 tiers. Each tier consists of 50 schools. And then after that, you could screw off. They don't care about you. So tier 1, 1 through 50. Tier 2, 51 through 100. Loyola Marymount has historically always been a tier 2 school, which means it's a really good school, really competitive school. Loyola Marymount is located pretty much in the heart of downtown, 2 miles from Skid Row, maybe. So when you drive up to this school, you're in downtown, and we're not talking skyscrapers and hotels. We're talking projects. We're talking concrete compounds, graffiti everywhere, homeless people everywhere, right? So you drive up to it, and you just see high steel fences and cement the whole way around. And I think the only way you can access it, the main entrance, is through their parking garage. So like that's their first part of their fortress. And they definitely have guards on campus, right? And so you go in there, and if you go on their website, these are very beautiful pictures and all this art. That's from inside the compound, people. They are surrounded by a shithole, all right? I think that's very appropriate for the mentality of this school. Look, I could have never qualified. So everybody, you could say this is sour grapes. You could say I'm jealous. You could say whatever you want. I watched a close, personal, sweet person get crushed by this school. Now, what do I mean by this? They're super competitive. Around, I want to say 2002 to 2004, somewhere during that time band, they somehow dropped from tier 2 to tier 3. That's a big ego hit. You're going to lose certain applicants that can raise your standards, meaning if people will go to a tier 2 school instead of a tier 3 because they want a more prestigious school, which means let's say, higher qualified students might not come that you're trying to get. And you want those students because hopefully they'll become judges and they'll pass the bar and it'll make your school look better and you can keep on climbing, because those are the metrics they use to rank law schools. So Loyola dropped from tier 2 to tier 3. They had a school-wide assembly meeting where all the professors were up on stage and they just went, what are we going to do? We got to get back to tier 2. This is horrible. We're disappointed in everybody. We need to make some changes, right? You might think, well, that's competitive. That's good. You want a school to do that. Okay. Example number 2. It's a weeder school. Now, that is a term used for, let's just say, a school can fit 100 people, right? That's all they can fit. A weeder school will admit 115, 120, right? And you get there, and you probably don't know it's a weeder school unless you've asked around. And then they inform you, all right, just want to let you know we're going to cut the bottom 5, bottom 10, whatever their metric is, % of people who get the lowest grades. That's super competitive. And I'm not going to lie. Most law schools, more law schools are like that than not. I don't want to say they put a gun to your head, but it turns into a musical, like a mean version of musical chairs. Everybody's fighting for top positions to get scholarships, and people are fighting to not be at the bottom. So it's very competitive. You are graded on a curve, right? Well, because of this, I would hear stories of how there would be a class assignment and you had to do some legal research and you had to go into the law library to find this volume or this book. And students would go there. The books would be missing. The books would be hidden on different floors. They would have fucking pages torn out of them. Law students were trying to undermine, play mental games, and screw each other all the time at this school. It was so bad. She stopped studying at that school and came to my school to study because people were friendly. And I went, okay, that's a far drive. Why? Because people would sit at a table, put books around on all the other chairs and tell you it's occupied because they wanted a desk to themselves or so that you couldn't have a place to study. Now, why am I saying this? One, because that is not my style. I would have not gone to that law school if I had been able to go. But, okay, if you're not an attorney and you close your eyes and you're like, okay, attorneys are pit bulls and assholes and soulless and all they do is care about money and, you know, all the other tropes about attorneys. You close your eyes. Now, I want you to picture a factory that just churns those people out. All right, you got that mental picture? Okay, you are picturing Loyola Marymount Law School. God, they're the reason I hate attorneys. So now, Miss Glandian went there. All right, she seems very pleasant. Why am I, kind of talking shit? I'm actually trying to make a point. Miss Glandian is smart. She's tough. She's tested. And in all probability, she's soulless. So you just can't go. You can't go to that school and not come out unscathed. So now back to her credentials. She specializes in criminal defense, but she also practices in some aspects of civil litigation. And this is important, going to be important later. We'll probably get an episode 2. She participated in a summer law program in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where she took courses in international and comparative law and international protection of human rights, which that's going to be a big topic for number 2. Now, here are some of the cases that she has done that kind of her claims to fame, all criminal defense cases. She defended celebrities such as Mike Tyson, Chris Brown, Michael Jackson, Kesha, Jesse Smollett, and ex-UFC fighter Cain Velasquez. And that's out of an article from The Sun out of the UK. All right, now, in your opinion, how many of those people were guilty? Okay, so the reason why I asked that is Piers Morgan asked a very stupid question, objectively speaking. I understand why he did it, but man, all those people aren't innocent. I feel for Cain Velasquez. He shouldn't be included in that. He's guilty, but that shouldn't be a crime, in my opinion. But some of these other people, I couldn't sleep right defending them, but she can. So keep that in mind. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up. We got to number 6, so that's pretty good. The other one might be a little bit longer, but I will tamper down on the intro. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry it took so long. Sorry I talked so fast. All right, so thank you for hanging in there with me. I know I'm talking fast. I know it's been a while. I will get you part 2 coming soon. And as always, if you guys are willing to listen, we are willing to talk. Catch you later. Bye. That's it. That's our show. Make sure you join us for part 2 of this discussion where we will continue giving you updates on the Andrew Tate case. Please do us a favor and like, subscribe, share this podcast so we can get some traction. Once I get around to it, check us out on our socials. Combative Nerds on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You know the deal. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next episode.